2 days ago, I was out to lunch with a friend who's also a patient. And a couple hours after, we were talking, and he had this great question for me. And it was, why am I already thinking about the next meal, particularly something with sugar? He says, I'm stressed about having to go back to work right now. And I just feel like, as much as I'm on track with all this metabolic health stuff that you've been talking about, he said, I just feel like I have no willpower. And I know exactly what he was talking about. And I've heard this from lots of my patients, and of course, have felt this myself. It seems like it hits for a lot of people around 3 p.m. after their lunch hour. They didn't plan on wanting to go to the vending machine at work. They didn't plan on thinking about, hey, that candy or cookie that's in the break room. But now that it's in their head, the thought just can't seem to go away. And what I want to talk about today, as I've really delved into this and into the neuroscience of what's going on, because this is what's called a craving. And this has never been a willpower issue. This is actually a neurobiologic issue that is going on in your brain. And I feel like when people talk to me about it, or patients talk to me about it, it is what they label a willpower issue. And if you will, today, I'm going to talk to you about how this is not your willpower, and this is actually neuroscience, neurobiology, chemistry that is changing in your brain. Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen Gabriel. I am a board certified physician and a metabolic health expert. And what I want to share today is really three things for the purpose that you can understand it and get control of it. So, the three things I want you to understand by the end of this video is really what's happening in your biochemistry to create a craving, the specific 4-part pattern so that you can identify it that happens with all cravings, and the metabolic drivers that really increase the problem, meaning make it worse. And the reason why it's important to know what makes it worse is so that you can avoid those things and not get hit with the cravings. So let's begin with what is happening neurobiologically in your head. Here's what's happening. This is all based on essentially neurotransmitters going off in your brain. And it is the same with food as it is with anything that's addictive. And that goes from drugs to video game addiction to social media. All of these things are hacking your neurochemistry. And here's what's going on. Number one is a surge in dopamine. And dopamine is an anticipation neurotransmitter, and it is also a reward system. And so, as soon as your brain is thinking about this stuff, you're hitting a lot of dopamine. At the same time, you get an opiate pleasure sensation when you go and eat the sugary, high caloric, very tasty, ultra processed food. So you get pleasure, you're getting reward. When you don't have it, you have an anticipation signal. And then also, once you eat this, serotonin fires, which is another neurotransmitter. So, three different neurotransmitter systems. And when the serotonin hits, then you get a relief from this. And that is really all happening simultaneously. And it only triggers if you've done it before. So, this is the way all of these things work. You try social media once, you do it a few more times, the entire dopamine, opiate, serotonin system begins firing, gets all synced up in your brain. And at that point, I mean, I hate to say it this way, it kind of owns you. But if you can be aware of it, which we're going to talk about later in this video, and some tricks to get around it, you can really suppress this. So let's get to the second part, which is what is the 4 parts that always happen with cravings and addiction. And this has been defined. There's real research, groundbreaking foundational research, really in the last 10 to 20 years about what goes on with any of these things that hack our brain, get us addicted, which is what the word craving is for food. It's craving is an addiction that we need to go back. We anticipate, we want that sugar, we want that ultra processed food. And here's the 4 things that the research really found. And this is, it begins with binging, withdrawal, craving, and sensitization. And what this is you eat a lot of it, too much. Then when you don't have it, you have a withdrawal process. Then you have the anticipation, that's the craving feeling, the addiction. And then as this happens more and more, you begin to become desensitized. And when this happens, you need more for the same input later on. And that's really what's going on in this process. And this really is defined now for the most part. It's in the literature. This is what we defined as what a craving really is. All people have food cravings. And even more shocking is we move up to, let's call it 4 out of 10 people or 40% who are overweight or obese. So, this is hard. I've been there myself before. And you can beat this. It's important to be aware just how prevalent this is. So don't feel alone if this is happening to you. So now let's look at what makes this worse. What are the inputs into your brain? Because that's really what it is that makes cravings or makes you even more susceptible to cravings. And it's a lot of the things that I've talked about in the prior videos. Number 1 is insulin resistance. And if you want to, you can check out in the link down below. We talked all about insulin resistance, why it's important to do the lab test that checks for insulin resistance. And what this does is when you have insulin resistance, sugar spikes and sugar crashes. And when this happens, especially during the crash, you feel the craving. And so we're going to talk just in this last section about what we can do about it, but that's one input that does it. The next input that does it is poor sleep. So if you don't get enough sleep, especially anyone who starts going below 6 hours, this really causes increased insulin resistance, what we just talked about, but also with this, what we're all about here at Beyond GLP is it causes a desensitization and a decrease in GLP-1, which makes us more hungry all the time. It also causes us to not feel the leptin signal as much, which is another fullness hormone in our body. And even worse than that, it increases the hormone ghrelin, increases it, which makes us more hungry. So poor sleep is one that we can fix. And we've talked about that one as well. And that is another input that makes this problem worse. The next one that we can all work on is chronic stress. And chronic stress increases cortisol, which goes back again to insulin resistance, causes problem. Big blood sugar swings, makes us less sensitive to GLP-1. And this also increases cravings dramatically. I think we all know what it's like to be really stressed out and just reach over. You can't even control yourself. Grab that candy, those M&Ms, that chip, whatever it is. This is all because of the high cortisol levels. So anything we can do to manage stress, which we're going to do a whole video on in the future, really helps decrease cravings. Now, what can you do about this? I've really looked at the research here and I've tried some of this stuff myself and with my patients. The first thing is stop saying it's a willpower problem. That's giving the control somewhere else. The first thing you have to do is identify that you're having a craving. And you can just say that in your head. I'm having a craving. What can I do about it? A lot of this is about my insulin resistance problem. I'm working on this with stuff. You need to have alternates in that moment. The alternates in that moment really are be ready with like a fiber drink. It buys some time, it gives you something to put in your mouth. You can also have some natural alternatives like carrots, celery, broccoli. I know it's not exactly what you're craving, but because of you're aware of it, you're going to replace with this and start teaching your brain that this is the input you're going to give instead. And slowly over time, by doing it this way, you're also buying time for your glucose, or your other word for sugar level, can normalize out and the craving will decrease. And you're saying, I'm going to give yourself an alternative. Remember, the goal here is it's not to beat yourself up and say, I'm getting rid of all cravings. That it is harder to do, but you're going to decrease the intensity of them. You're going to treat them differently with the input you're going to give yourself, and you're going to reduce the frequency of them if you do this. It works amazing. I've done it myself. Patients have done it. It really works. It takes some time, probably 4 to 6 weeks. But if you put a spot in your fridge or your pantry for this, the things you're going to give yourself when there's a craving, you will start to see the intensity drop and the frequency drop. And it's very rewarding, and obviously resensitizes and balances your GLP-1 system, improves your metabolic health, and it's been life-changing and fantastic, I can say for myself. Now, here's the takeaway I really want you to have from this video. Cravings are not a willpower problem. They are a neurobiologic input going on in your brain. It's not you, it's something that has hacked your brain. And this is really the result of primarily stress, sleep, food engineering, insulin resistance that's going on and taking hold of you. And you can take hold of this and take hold of your metabolism and get that all back. If you like topics like this, I do 2 videos a week. Check out the link down below. In addition to this, I have a free metabolic assessment. It takes about 10 minutes. I encourage you to do it. It gives you a lot of great information, even all about this craving stuff that I talked about today. And it'll tell you which one of these inputs is the first one to go after for yourself. Super useful. I'll see you in the next video.